My definition of productivity, because be more productive, be twice more productive, whatever. My definition of productivity is spending as much time as possible on your highest priority tasks and reducing those administrative tasks. So that's the general concept. In terms of numbers, we just talked 20%, get that up to 30%. You're amongst the top performers.
Do people spend more time on administrative tasks because they like it better, or because they don't have to talk to other people in order to do the stuff that's more productive?
There's a bunch of reasons. Sometimes the main tasks are just hard to do, right? Oh, I got to make some sales calls, or I got to do a performance review with my employees. That's a manager's job. So there's some of that. Some of those administrative tasks are required of them by other departments or by their senior manager, or by legal requirements and so on. So I got to fill out a report, I got to go to this internal meeting, and so it's just things that are imposed on them. So there's sometimes a reluctance, sometimes administrative requirements. It's a combination of different things. Again, the smart people are saying, let me control my time and focus on what matters most and do the things that I need to do.
All right, welcome to another edition. This is another exciting edition of Living Boldly with Purpose podcast. And I'm Dr. B. I'm your host. And today, we don't always get this. Sometimes we get all the folks that are saying, I'm trying to do this, this, and this, and this. Or, I saw somebody did this and I'm really good at copying. I'm one of those people who is extremely good at copying what other people have done. I grew up as the special ed student that was told that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. And so I got good at relationships. I got good at talking to people. I got good at copying. I got good at looking what somebody else has done and then figuring how to do it. And then being able to create some of the companies and some of the entrepreneurial spirit that I have that is based on what somebody else did. And then I said, I need a mentor. I need somebody to tell me how to exactly what they did so I can go duplicate it, copy, and then go make some money. But today, when we think about living boldly with purpose and finding what it is that the reason God put us on this earth, I get to talk to somebody who invents things, somebody who comes up and God just stuck into his mind like this great thing that would make our society better in the time that it is now. And I think sometimes when I think about inventions, and Mark, I had some friends that were in college, and we were always talking about inventions, and they would come up with some of the craziest ideas. Like they would say, let's make towels automatically heated at the beach. And so we'll get the sun or something to heat up these wire coils inside of a towel. And then we will then, when it heats up there, then we'll lay on it and we'll be all warm and be dry. And we're like, but what if you electrocute yourself? We started playing the devil's advocate instead of the encouraging roommates, right? The other one, he said that he wanted to do magnetic confetti so that after the parade, then the magnetic machine could just go down the street and all the confetti would suck itself into the machine, and then nobody would have to pick up or sweep up confetti. But it was just funny when I started thinking about that, and like, why didn't they carry through with their dreams? Why didn't they, say, hey, these are all these great ideas I have, but I never went through the process of getting it done. And so I love to see people like yourself who said, you know what, I'm not going to be the person who thinks about it and has this great idea and then never do it. You're the guy who actually did it. And so I'm excited to hear today what that looks like and be able to chop it up and say, for those of you who are watching today and say, you know what, I do have some good ideas. I do have some things that I think will work in today's market. And what is that thought process that people do? And so hopefully we'll be able to answer that. When we were talking beforehand, he said, I just want to make sure that I give your audience value. And so today I'm excited about the value that you're going to get. And like I do with all of our guests, I've asked Mark to tell his story because I want to know who he is before I figure out before we understand and learn what it is that he's done and how he's done it and how it's, changed the world that we live in. And so, Mark, thank you for being on today. Thank you for being willing to, all the way from Toronto, Canada, to our screen, and to be able to talk to us about what you're passionate about in life, what you're purposeful about in your life, and how you've lived boldly. And so I'm going to leave the floor to you, and you take as long as you want with your story, and then we'll just kind of chop it up after that with some of your ideas. So thank you again for being on.
Great to be here. Well, I'll tell you two stories.
Okay.
Well, a lot of people who have developed in their lives and created businesses and so on, they say, well, I started when I was down and out and I wasn't doing very well, or I got divorced. I was at the bottom of the pit and I saw the light. And that's not been my passion or my approach. Having said that, there was a point in my life where I didn't really have a job and I was living at home and I didn't really have any prospects. Well, I was 11 years old.
I love it.
So I was delivering newspapers. And I got to tell you the newspaper story and then the adult story. So the thing is, a lot of your audience doesn't know about delivering papers. You've maybe seen an old movie and some kid's riding a bicycle and he tosses this newspaper at somebody's house. Well, the way it worked with us is I would show it up at Mrs. Smith's basement. She had this apartment building, and in the basement, the bunch of papers would get delivered, and 7 or 8 of us newspaper boys would go and pick up our papers from there. She'd count them all out, and then we'd put them in our bags and go and deliver them to the neighborhood. Well, the first thing was that on the weekends, the newspaper was separate from a colored magazine. The two came together, but they were published differently. So you had to take that colored magazine and put it inside the newspaper and then deliver it. So I watched these other guys and then open the paper and then pick this thing up here and put it in. I thought, oh my gosh, that looks so slow. So I figured out how to do it really quickly. This is classic time and motion stuff, how to get the inserts in as fast as possible. So I got good at that. Well, then I'm hauling around these things in bags and they're quite heavy. I thought, time to invest in technology. So I bought a wagon and it made it much easier to carry the papers around. Then I'm delivering up the street. You take the wagon up one side, but you have to deliver papers to the other side of the street. This is often called operations research. Do I deliver 2 papers to the other side or just one, or do I take 3 with me and come back to the wagon? So you kind of have to figure out the formula there for how do I reduce the number of steps as much as possible? Because all this was in the interest of efficiency and productivity. How can I deliver my papers as fast as possible? Another technique is, you've seen this, you can fold the newspaper up. I could probably still do it today, and throw it up onto somebody's porch. You can also throw underhand the paper without folding it. I could do that.
Really?
So the question then is, well, if it takes me 4 or 5 seconds to fold the paper, do I save more than 4 or 5 seconds by saving some steps? So there's a little bit of a calculation there. On my last route, it was in a big apartment building and I had 130 customers. You had to go and collect from them every single week. Knock, knock, hi, it's Mark. I'm collecting for the paper. I do it on Tuesday night or something. Well, that took forever. So what I did is I divided the route in half. I went to half of the people on weeks 1 and 3, and the other half on weeks 2 and 4, thus saving myself a lot of time. So I'd collect for 2 weeks instead of 1. There was one other idea I could have done back then. It's much easier today. Back then, some people paid at the office. They sent a check every month to the office, and so that would all happen automatically. And so I never saw them. Now, I could have encouraged more customers to do that, but a bit of a trade-off there as well, because you get more tips if you knock on the door and collect from people. But all that was in the interest of productivity. So as an 11-year-old kid, I was trying to become as efficient as possible delivering my newspapers. And I guess all that stuck with me. So story number 2.
Before you jump into story number 2, because I'm thinking about my life and I'm thinking about my days as a paperboy, and I'm thinking about how you actually thought through a lot of this stuff. I had a sled that I pulled around. I had a bicycle. I had We folded them. I was just frustrated, especially during collection time, because I can remember going up to houses and um, knocking, and watching them close the curtain and then knock on the door, and then them then not answering the door to get, like a collect. But when I think about it now, I mean, all the lessons that you learned, all the things that you put together, I'm sure you're going to talk about it in your second story here. But just the efficiency of, I'm sure I went back and forth and tried to figure out, like, should I deliver on this side of the street or that side of the street? Or I was throwing papers in bushes. I was, especially those folks that when I would go up there and they weren't there for me to collect from, or they were hiding from me, I would drop theirs like at the farthest I could at the end of the driveway, so that they would have to walk all the way out there, because I was mad at them for not, because we had to. I don't know, if you had to do that, where we had to pay for our papers first, and then we went to collect. We got to keep our money. And
Yep.
so the company, I guess the newspaper company, was making all the money off us paper boys to make sure that they were getting their money, and then, like, good luck collecting. And they gave us these receipt books, and oh my gosh! But I'm loving the fact that you thought through this process, and just thinking about your mind right now compared to my mind, and then why you get to be successful in inventing and doing stuff where I don't. So I just wanted to kind of just compare our stories a little bit, and just say how
Well,
excited I am. Yeah, good.
I thought through it. Well, did I? It was just kind of intuitive. Some
Okay.
people particular types of skills. You're a
Mhm.
musician, you're an artist, whatever. And you just kind of do that thing naturally and it comes easily to you. And we all have those skills. For me, I don't know if I even thought, just like, here's what I got to do. I'm also a creative guy, so I'm thinking up creative solutions to things. Not that those are super creative, but they are solving a problem. And so I didn't have any mentors. Maybe one of the other newspaper boys showed me how to fold a paper or something, but I kind of had to figure it out on my own. And so it's just that's who I am, and I had that kind of natural ability, I guess. Um, so story number
That's so
two.
cool.
So as an adult, I'm working for a big multinational, and like all of you have, you go to meetings and everybody's late. And so this frustrated me because I was a guy who thought about being on time. I had to be with newspapers, and just something about me thought about integrity. If you show up on time, I can trust you. You're a trustworthy person, and for me, being on time was super important. So we're all standing around waiting for latecomers to show up at the meeting. And it was a bad sort of habit at this company, or bad culture, that everybody would be late all the time. And so I looked around at the people and I said, if we add up your salary and his and hers and mine and multiplied by the 10 minutes we've been waiting, boy, that would be a lot of dollars that we're spending on waiting around. And yeah, maybe you could track that, or maybe you could have a device and actually you can measure a whole bunch of things, kind of like a chess clock in reverse. You'd press buttons and track your time on different activities. Boom, that was the aha moment that led to me to invent an electronic device. This is the more recent version for those watching. This is the TimeCorder device. So it's programmed with different activities. There's a list on the back. And every time you begin a different activity, you just press one button and it tracks your time on that activity. So you go from one to the other throughout the course of the day. It's a little less complicated to use than a doorbell. So
Okay.
it gives you audio, visual, and tactile feedback. It's easy to use. It's fun to use. And that was the genesis for my inventing that. Well, that's easy. But as you mentioned, how what people actually go through and follow through on their invention ideas. Most probably don't. But I did. So I found someone to make a prototype or a couple of prototypes. I tested them. And it was a bookkeeper who said, "Mark, this is great. You got to launch this thing. Get your pile up your money and do a proper version." So I did. Having said that, it turned out to be the world's most popular product that everybody thought somebody else should buy. So I thought I was going
Oh
to sell these
gosh.
devices to lawyers. So I went to some lawyers and they said, nah, not quite right for us. We need a lot more details when we're doing our time and billing. And so on national television, I just happened to get on TV. We had some accountants use it. And when I went to them weeks later, they said, yes, thanks. It was sort of useful, but not quite right for our business. You will do really well, Mark, with independent consultants. So I went to some independent consultants and they said, have you talked to the lawyers? Well, that didn't work. Now, I did sell some of the devices early on to a few folks, but I had to pivot. I had to quickly
Mhm.
change. That wasn't working. And so I decided, well, since I'm this productivity guy, I was always interested in that. Maybe I'll conduct time studies and I'll go out and lend out the devices. It's much more profitable to do that. Employees will use them to track their own time. I'll analyze the results and then show people how to be more productive. I had to invent that whole business. It really didn't exist before. And it's tricky because people think, our employees aren't going to like it. Well, they do like this because it's easy, it's fun to use, and the results are anonymous. So that was my little journey from thinking about selling devices to instead selling a service connected with the device.
Gotcha. So now the service comes with the device when or you get the service and then the device comes with it. Is that how it
Yeah,
kind
well,
of ended up being?
I lend them out to people. It's my tool for conducting these time studies.
Gotcha.
So, 100 sales reps or bank managers or whatever. We ship them all out and they go through and figure out how to use them. We did one recently just a couple of months ago with gas station store managers, trying to figure out how can they spend more time on organizing the store and less servicing clients and customers, which they got to do sometimes. But are they spending time on people management and ordering and merchandising and so on?
Yeah. When you think about like identity and becoming the person, I think of the 11-year-old Mark who's thinking through this whole process as he's delivering papers and trying to be efficient at it. We had a Sunday insert, and I'm like, where were you when I was trying to hurry up and put this insert in every Sunday? That was, I think, coupons or something like that. That I had papers everywhere. I think half of my customers didn't get a lot of the paper
Oops.
because it ended up on my garage floor as I was in such a hurry to get it done. But I think of the identity of you as a child thinking, okay, so who do I need to be in order to invent this and then do it? And then did it shift a little bit when you got those failures or when you have this, hey, I put the prototype together, I put the machine together, I gave it out, and now nobody wants it, but it didn't discourage you. And so, how did that identity that said, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep trying, I'm going to keep doing this until I get something that works, how did that progress for you?
Some of us have a stubbornness, and I've worked with other inventors, pro bono, helping them out, and they're really stubborn about this is my thing. Really, what you want to do is you want to go out to the world and see if the world likes this thing. And that's one of the questions I would ask some of those inventors. Do people really want this, or is it just something you think would be really nice, or you use in your backyard, or you use in the kitchen, but does the world want it? When I did the first study, and I was on TV, and someone called up and said they needed to study their sales reps, I thought, perfect. So I went out and did that, and I used their computer at the time to upload some of the data. And I was doing that at their office location. And then all these other reps were gathering around and looking at the results on the screen. And I thought, I'm onto something here. They like this. They're curious to see where the time is being spent. So that kind of gave me an indication that I was onto something. So that's what you got to do with your purpose. It's, if you want to have an impact on the world, as opposed to just creating nice pieces of art or poetry or something for yourself, if you want to have an impact on the world, you can't be too stubborn. You got to see, what does the world want from this thing that I'm doing, and how do I pivot to find out what people really want? It's not an easy formula to figure out.
No, but what a great question to ask before you go make something or ask before you put that together or spend money on something is, did
I,
you do?
I've got a better question.
Okay.
So you invent this thing. It's a website or it's an app or whatever. And by the way, the TimeCorder is better than an app for a whole bunch of reasons. I won't go into the details, but it's physical. It gives you instant feedback. The batteries. There's a bunch of reasons. People go, "Why don't you do an app?" Well, they didn't really understand the business. There's no business reason. When we get 94% of employees getting us detailed data, then there's no reason to do something else. But I got off track there, and I was going to give an insight about something, and now I've forgotten. So
You
we'll
were
have to
saying
come.
there's a better question than
Oh, better question. Yeah, of
yeah.
course. That's memory. You get all stuck on these things. So when the inventor says, "Oh, this is my great product that's going to change the world, it's going to do all these wonderful things," the question to ask is, give me 5 reasons why people would not buy your product
Mm.
or your service. Oh, well, it's going to be too expensive. Oh, well, they're not used to it. Oh, I got to do whatever. That's what you've got to think about, because everyone will go, "Oh, that's great. Oh, that's lovely. You've got this invented new thing. Wonderful." But when you think about 5 reasons why they wouldn't buy, that starts giving you clues as to how you need to change the product or who you need to appeal to or whatever.
Did you I love that because it's not just does the market want it, it's why why the market doesn't want it is a huge if you combine those 2 questions. Have you ever felt like you might like in the things that you're thinking of. I know for me, when I think of, I feel like I'm always behind the curve, and I think I'm an early adopter. Like I was one who had the first iPhone and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I always feel like I'm because I'm always trying to duplicate it, because I'm always trying to copy. That I'm always behind the momentum or the wave or the things that are going on. When I think about like our agriculture age has been gone for a long time, and then I think of like the in the 80s and the 90s, all the distribution that we were trying to figure out because we manufactured everything in the industrial revolution, and now now we've manufactured all this stuff, so we have to have malls and we have to have ways to distribute it, whether it's a like an Amway distributor or I'm just putting it in a mall or whatever it is. And then when I started teaching in the 90s, I was teaching computers, and all of a sudden this thing called the internet showed up and popped up, and so now we go into this information age. And then I think we went to a partnership age, and I don't know what age we're in. AI age, I guess, is what we're in right now. As you're thinking about stuff and putting stuff together, how does trying to predict, or is it okay to be behind the curve as things come
Oh,
up?
I've got lots to say about that. And if we're in the AI age, that's nothing. The next age is going to be the robots age.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I started doing these time studies before a lot of this technology
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
existed. I mean, one guy prospect said, "Oh, sorry, we can't go ahead. We got this major new initiative happening." It
Mhm.
was voicemail. Turned out to be not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So I started before a lot of people had laptops. There were some before the internet, before email, and so I've seen all these different technologies. First, we keep inventing more and more ways to be out of touch with each other, so that's not good. But here's what I've discovered. Back to the early '90s when I started, Microsoft and other high tech companies would put out these videos and
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, here's the new future. The way of the future. You're going to have this product, and you're going to be able to make calls on your TV screen and your phone and in your car and so on." I get mixed up on all this stuff, but they would present these bright, rosy visions of the future.
Mhm.
Well, that future has arrived, and you know what? It's messy. We got hackers and spam and criminals and deep fakes and on and on and on. And from a data point of view, here's what I found. Back then, people were spending about 25% of their time on administrative tasks. And today, they're still spending 25% of their time on administrative tasks with all those great new tools. Here's one: email. Listen, I think email is a terrific tool. I kind of wonder how we did business back in the 1980s when I started. Um, so email's terrific, but we've measured time that people spend on unnecessary email. Apart from all the other email they do, unnecessary email. It's a whopping 3.4 hours per week. That's huge. And so with the good comes the bad. All that unnecessary email is slowing people down. My other favorite story from way back, when I started in the corporate world, we used to do spreadsheets. We didn't call them spreadsheets. We'd have our promotion plans, and we had different regions across the country, and we had different months down the year. And you'd have to put in how much you're going to spend in this region during that month and so on. It was a spreadsheet. So you do all this with a calculator and get the numbers to add up on the columns, and they didn't, so you had to do it again. Well, along came what was Lotus spreadsheets at the time,
Lotus, yeah.
Excel eventually, and great. Well, guess what happened? My manager said, could you do a version with a 1% growth and 3% growth and 8% growth? Okay, great. I had to do 3 different versions. So I don't know if my promotion plan was any better, but it certainly had prettier looking fonts. So that was the result of that. So yes, we can do a lot more things. And listen, technology has changed our lives, but it brings these unexpected spin-offs and side effects. So I'm not big on predicting the future, but I know this. For knowledge workers, the kind of people that I measure, 10 years from now, they will still be burdened by administrative tasks and unnecessary communication and the like. So that ain't going to change. Some of those jobs will change, but people will always have those unnecessary administrative burdens.
Well, and
So
yeah, I love that you're saying it, because one of the things that when I started as a professor in 1992 or whatever, we had this thing called Fred Mail. And Fred Mail, we got so excited because we could send, this was in the dial-up modem time, when you would dial up and you would send your mail, and it would go and call up another server, and then that server would call up another server, and it would transfer it. And so it took 3 days to get, or 2.5 days to get this email to New York. And we were so excited that we did this email. And then email between then and now, it's taken over everything. It is, people get mad. I don't think it was ever made as a communication tool. It was made as an information tool. But we use it as a communication tool to communicate back and forth to people. We lose so much productivity on it. People get mad at me that I don't check my email every hour or every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes. I emailed you. I told you, how come you didn't look at it? And I'm like, remember the days when we didn't have it and we still were able to communicate with each other because relationships were important. In your business and the things you've done, how have you been able to keep relationships as part of the key of making your businesses work or your life work without the technology taking over for the piece that's relationship? I think we're losing something here. I mean, what's your thought here? Because you said 25% is administrative, but does that mean 75% is actually communicating or talking to other people, or is it entertainment?
Well, I did some recent research on that, and quickly, if you read time management books, they'll say, track your time on different things, but they don't give too much data. I've got the data. They also say focus your time on your important tasks, not urgent ones, but important ones. But they never really define that. So I thought, oh, well, I can. So excited little kid, I can. So it turns out that when we do these time studies, we ask people about what are the most important things you need to do in your job. So for a sales rep, they'll tell you, processing orders and servicing clients. But the number one answer is prospecting and generating new sales. So I did that for 13 different job types and looked at what they were telling me, and then looked at where they were actually spending their time and mapped the two, and found out that those are their highest priority activities. People are spending 20% of their time on those high priority activities. There's the 20-80 Pareto rule. That's just coincidental. It is 20%. Turns out women are at 22% and men are only at 18%. So women are doing a better job of managing their time. So that, you said the other 75% or whatever it is, there's travel, there's personal time, there's responsibilities that people have to do, there's internal meetings and various things. But if you probably are at 20%, if you can increase that to 30% or more, then you're amongst the top performers. And you do that by eliminating all those administrative tasks. You do it by delegating. You do it by using some technology. But you asked about relationships, and indeed, those are so precious. Now, you can do that automatically. I send out a newsletter and it goes to 4,000 people. When I started, I was sending out newsletters and licking envelopes and sealing them, sending them in the mail.
Yeah.
Um, so you can do that on autopilot. But indeed, to call people up, to have conversations, boy, I think that's such a powerful thing. It takes time to nurture those relationships, but that's what you've got to do to maintain a healthy network of people who support you and you're supporting them as well.
And when you say that 20% of, if only 20% of your time is spent on doing what creates the best result for you, then it's
Yep.
like, wait a minute, I really do have to look at, use your machine or whatever it is that we got to do to make sure that if, like you said, jump up to 30%, then you're doing better than everybody else that's out there.
Yep.
Because you actually have figured out a way to be so much more productive in those times.
And let me just define my definition of productivity,
Okay.
because be more productive, be twice more productive, whatever. My definition is of productivity is spending as much time as possible on your highest priority tasks and reducing those administrative tasks. So
Yeah.
that's the general concept. In terms of numbers, we just talked 20%, and get that up to 30%, you're amongst the top performers.
Do people spend more time on administrative tasks because they like it better or because they don't have to talk to other people in order to do to do the stuff that's more productive?
There's a bunch of reasons. Sometimes the main tasks are just hard to do, right? Oh, I got to make some sales calls, or I got to do a performance review with my employees. That's a manager's job.
Mhm.
So there's some of that. Some of those administrative tasks are required of them by other departments or by their senior manager or by uh, legal requirements and so on. So I got to fill out a report. I got to go to this internal meeting. And so it's just things that are imposed on them. So there's sometimes a reluctance, sometimes administrative requirements. It's a combination of different things. Again, the smart people are saying, let me control my time and focus on what matters most and do the things that I need to do.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm talking to people or just trying to figure out how to help people become the person that they need to be in order to do the task better or do it more efficiently or do it in a way that makes them. And so I put a lot on uh, personal development and growing as a person. What's your thought on somebody and learning and and making sure that they're a better person or a different person or growing in what they do? And how much time do you think people should spend on working on themselves compared to, I don't know, entertainment or to yeah, other things
Well,
that
I can
people do?
talk a little bit about the journey. There's this thing that's eating at you. I want to start a
Mm.
business. I want to travel. I want to become a musician or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And you gotta listen to that little thing eating at you. And then you say, well, I don't have time because I've got two jobs and three kids and so on. Well, what I've discovered, because I did a study of mothers of small children under 18, and um, they were doing it for 24 hours a day. So we're looking at childcare and meal preparation, all kinds of things, and found out that there is discretionary time there. Believe it or not, it's about 20 to 30 hours per week. And that's time that people are internet surfing or watching television, or maybe they're doing exercise, or maybe they're going to church, a bunch of things. But the time is there. It comes in little bits and pieces. It's not like a big long stretch for some people. So if you think this thing's eating at me, I don't have the time is there, you do have it. So then, but it's huge and overwhelming. And what I tell people is start with just a little piece at a time. I want to start a business. Well, just read a book on starting a business. Oh, I don't know. Just buy a book on starting a business, right? Just
Yeah.
talk to a friend, go to lunch and talk to someone who's done that sort of thing before, whatever it might be. And you break that huge, overwhelming task into small, little, manageable pieces. Oh, I can read a book on starting a business. Oh, I can show up at the office to find out how to register my business or whatever. I can take a course. So that's what I tell people, little steps at a time. And those steps will grow into bigger steps. Well, I did that. Okay, now I can do the next thing.
Mhm.
Not be intimidated by the overwhelmingness of it. And I'm learning to play the piano a little later in life. And I don't know what I'll be like in 5 years from now, but if I can master that scale today, then that's the first step in learning to play piano. It's going to take a while, but it's like one step at a time.
Do you think people use entertainment as a distraction from the things that they want to do or to get away from their lives? Or, because sometimes I just see this as I'm out and about, I see so many people spending so much, whether it's discretionary time or time they should be doing something else, they're still doing it, trying to entertain themselves, whether it's, learning about their favorite sports figure, or it's going to the dance, or it's just watching shows on television, or we hear this binge watching all the time, or, Netflix. And it just seems like so much of our lives in our convenient world is on entertaining ourselves. And does that take away from?
Sure, look, you have a busy life. You've got, as I said, two jobs. You've got kids running around. You've got all this, pressures from work and so on. It's okay to say, I need some time for myself. And that time for myself is watching a TV show or whatever. What we learned from some of the time studies I did amongst mothers, for instance, is that when they spent time on themselves, they were better mothers, but they weren't just watching TV. They were gardening or reading or doing fitness or going to doing spiritual activities or meditation or taking a bath even. So you do need some of that time for yourself. What I would say is, well, track your time however you want to do it and see how much time you're spending playing video games, surfing the internet. Those can tend to be activities that people say, yeah, it wasn't the greatest. All right, take some of that time and just transfer a little bit of it to something more worthwhile. Pick up a new sport, go for a walk, read a book, start a business, or read a book on starting a business, and take those little steps, just a step at a time. And eventually you'll find, I don't need that entertainment because this thing that I'm doing is the thing that gives me value and purpose and meaning to my life. That's what I wish for everybody, that they would find that meaning, not in the meaning of someone else's entertainment that you said, but rather in the things that they're pursuing. That's such a powerful thing.
That's so true, because I hear what you're saying about purpose. And if you're doing the thing that you were built to be on this earth to do, and you're learning, I mean, I think we get so much joy from learning and then creating, and then and that wonderful thing that we get to do. And then I see, folks say, okay, this is fun to go watch this comedian, which is great. I love comedy. I mean, I love entertainment. I'm not going to say I don't, but at the same time, I'm going, he's living his dream. Sometimes I'll talk to somebody who, and I know you guys have athletes and that kind of stuff that are there, but it's so big here in the US where, let's say it's the NBA, and they tell me all the stats about a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan or, Kobe Bryant or whatever. I'm probably naming old people because I haven't watched the league in a long time. But then I ask about their kids, and they can tell me more about that person that that they know about, that's their sports hero, than they can about, okay, what's your kid do, how did he do in the last baseball game that he played? Oh, I don't know, I
Sure.
wasn't there. How do
Well,
we? Good.
we talked about people who have a purpose. I'm the productivity guy, invent this thing, start a business. And some people would be going, well, that's kind of not me. I don't know. And so I would say, how do you find your purpose?
Okay.
And sometimes it's just going out into the world and doing things. Go for a walk, go to a different type of show, hang out, have lunch with people. And here's one you could do: volunteer.
Mm.
Find something where you can volunteer. You're going to learn some new skills. You're going to give back to the world. You're going to meet some interesting people. What better thing could you do than that? And that volunteering might steer you into some new purpose that's of interest to you. And if you only do it for a little while, that's okay. The organization will say, hey, we got some great value from you. I hope you learned some skills. You made a difference and you're moving on. Well, that's all right. But what a great way to connect with people, learn skills, and find out what might interest you besides what you're doing. So that's something I tell everybody to do.
Is it possible to live in purpose, be in purpose, doing your purpose, and not serve others?
I suppose I think about artists who love creating great works of art, and it's the purpose is the engagement in that, the production of the thing. And if the world doesn't buy their art, well, that's okay. Or they don't buy much of it, that's okay. And I've got a couple of those things too. I write poetry, and if the world doesn't all get it, that's fine. You kind of hope you put it out there. When kids come to my house for Halloween, I give them poems, and I've done about 20 of them. And sometimes I get feedback, and if I don't, that's okay. You kind of know it's working. So artists or some people like to play music, and they just play for themselves. So that's okay. You don't have to necessarily have something that the world enjoys. If it works for you and your brain, and makes you feel good, then that's okay too.
Hmm. That's interesting because as I think through, I'm like, what if I were that person or that artist and I'm doing, do what it's for myself and I want to be enjoyment, but am I really, is that the purpose why I'm here just for myself to enjoy myself, or am I here to make an impact?
Well,
And yeah,
some things are.
okay.
I do puzzles. I buy it's called Games Magazine. There's puzzles in there. And the intellectual pursuit of solving that puzzle and having that aha moment of, I got it, whether it's a crossword puzzle or other types similar to that, is pretty neat. I don't share it with my family, or I don't broadcast it on the internet or whatever. It's just a very solo pursuit. And many people have those. You go for a bike ride, right? It's, well, I just do this thing, or um, I go rock climbing, or whatever it might be. That's okay to have purpose in your life that serves you alone. I'm a person who likes to serve the world as well. So I think you can do both. Some things help nurture the self, some things nurture the world. You can do both.
Yeah, no, I 100%. I mean, I think we have to do things that nurture ourselves, even if we're serving the world. Like you said, I need to do a puzzle because I just need to take my brain off of all the things that I'm doing right now just for a little bit, so I can decompose or just be in this space that's going to make it wonderful for me. But as you're telling that story, I was just thinking about the person who invented that puzzle for you to be able to share, and how he impacted and made a difference in your life by just creating something as simple as a puzzle that you now go get to take and move forward. And then I think, okay, so how do you pay that forward? Or is it necessary to pay anything for it? Or is it we're only here for a short amount of time? And I'd love to kind of hear your spiritual connection of what you think, why we're here, and the purpose of, the greater purpose, I guess, the macro purpose of all of us being on this planet. Or is there one? Or is it that we just come and we show up and then we die and we're done?
Uh, You know, I'm not really a religious person. Some people are. I think if you think about that stuff too much, you just get tangled up.
Okay.
Let me just go out and do some good for myself and for the world today, and try and be a good person, and try and raise terrific children. Try and be kind to my partner and to my neighbor. Hey, that's pretty good. Nothing wrong with that.
And so why is good more important than bad? Why not just go out and do bad for the world and hurt people? And I mean, I know that. I mean, it sounds so silly to think about that, but why would somebody just go, okay, because I believe we're here to help others and move people forward and impact. But I guess somebody on the opposite side of it is, well, I'm here. I'm going to go. Why not steal from people? It doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah, bad is not a question I think about a whole lot. So that's a complex question. I think goodness serves all of us better, and
okay.
badness is, I suppose, kind of selfish. I can go rob a bank, and that's good for me, but it hurts others. I just think we're in a win-win situation where helping the world and everyone wins. I think that's a great thing to do. By the way, on the subject of badness, I've, in the last year, tried to eliminate some words from my vocabulary. I've eliminated words like outrageous and ridiculous and harmful and just all, words that nasty words. I think better words are kindness and grace and gratitude and helpfulness and so on. And so when I hear people criticizing others, it's not something I think works well for us. You can be critical of their ideas, but don't put the person down, because I always figure they're looking at me and I did something wrong. Think of driving in traffic, right? Ah, that idiot out there honked, that jerk there, cut me off. Yeah, but he's probably thinking I did the same thing. So I'm always thinking about that kind of reciprocity, that if I'm mean to that person, maybe they're mean back. So if I can put out some goodness, maybe goodness will come back.
I love that. Well, and I think about it, I know I'm being very philosophical in our last 5 minutes, but I just think about if happiness is our goal and we find joy, and that's when our bodies and our chemistry and everything else are excited, then when we are together and we are serving each other, we are better together than we ever could be apart. Uh, so,
Absolutely.
so I thank you for thinking about one of the things you just brought up is words, and words matter. And so, how have you tried to uh, and I love this part where you're saying I've eliminated some words like ridiculous, and I've eliminated some of these words that maybe are harmful for my spirit or just harmful in my life. How does somebody pursue making sure that the words that they use, because words are so powerful? I mean, we have to think with words, right? We don't think. I guess we think in pictures a little bit, but the vocabulary that we have and the words that we think with ultimately determine who we become. And so, how have you taken that as part of your, I guess, journey to make sure that the words that you are using are ones that can move you forward?
I think there's a little bit of bullying going on out there in public discourse.
Mhm.
Uh, and I just, you know, I'm not a bullying expert, but it makes me feel better at the expense of you. I just don't believe in that model, that paradigm. I believe that if you give out goodness to the world, as I said, it'll come back. And so there are some visceral reactions, that sense of outrage at something. All right, but is there a different way of expressing that? Is first, it's understanding. That person didn't try and do something outrageous. The outrageousness was your reaction to it. So if we can understand other people and where they're coming from, we might not agree with them, but at least we can understand. I think that's a way to creating more harmony rather than just constantly criticizing people. Oh, I get it. I see where he's coming from on that. I see what he's interested in doing. Oh, I see what you're meaning to say on that is different from you idiot. That's outrageous.
Yeah,
It doesn't go anywhere.
yeah. Well, and in order to understand somebody, like the discourse that we're having, right, or the conversation we're having right now, you have to be in relationship. You have to be wanting to listen more than you're speaking. You have to want to understand the individual that you're talking to. And do you believe that we are losing as a society some of those relationship skills that because of technology, because of the internet, because of all these things that we're bombarded with, uh, are we losing some of that ability to just naturally want to know about our fellow man or the person who's across the street or the
Maybe are we losing it? It's sort of a constant. Maybe we just got to practice it a little more. My favorite example, when you get into effective listening, a husband and wife, and the husband stays late at work, and wife gets all mad. Why didn't you get home on time? Well, I was working late at night. What are you doing? Why didn't you call me? And it's sort of arguing back and forth.
Mhm.
Whereas if somebody listens, the husband says, "Oh, sounds like you're really upset that I didn't call you." Yeah, because I was hoping to spend time with you. Oh, so you wanted to spend time with me. Yeah, I really love you. I really love you. We've started from somebody getting mad about somebody being working late and not telling each other. And by that empathetic listening, somebody says, "I really love you." And that's what you want to do with effective listening. I call it deep listening. is getting down to those core layers, those core emotions, and core beliefs, rather than up at that surface level of people yelling at each other. Listen, it happens to all of us. We get mad at things,
Of course.
at our
Yeah.
partners, at our kids, at the guy in the traffic. But if we can kind of suspend that and be more empathetic and listening and get to that deep level and say, oh, so what you're saying is you're mad at me because I did that thing. Yeah, I'm really mad at you. Well, that's different from arguing back and forth. And we could do with a lot more of that. That is a bit of a skill to learn, or at least to practice. So you just got to go out there. I've done that in workshops. I've had people relay back what they heard, and they keep jumping to the next step. I said, no, 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 just say what that person said. Oh, you're upset because I didn't finish the report on time. Yes, that's what I said. Okay, now we can have a conversation. So it's a bit of a trick of a skill, and it takes some practice, but we can all do it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, and we were talking about productivity here, which is so
Oh yeah,
important. I mean, we keep coming back to it because it's so important, right? And I see this skill that you're talking about and listening and practicing more of listening, to uh, when I think of this practice, it helps us in our productivity, right? It helps us be better people. It helps us to be able to move forward, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
not.
The listening I'm doing is I ask people in these corporate time studies. I say, where do you ideally want to be spending your time? That's the benchmark. Okay, let's see where you're actually spending your time. Take one of the TimeCorder devices and track your time for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So my listening is saying to them, here's where you want to be. Not me. I don't, it's not my
Yeah.
model, but here's where you want to be. Here's where you are. And let me show you where those differences are. That's a kind of a listening. And good corporate consultants, whether you're with McKinsey or PwC or whether you're Mark Elwood, are good at sort of listening to what's on corporations' minds. But you can do that with individuals as well. Coaches do a good job of listening to what their clients are saying. I don't do much coaching, but that's what it is listening and feeding it back to people and saying, so you want to increase the sales in your business next year. That's what I heard you say, says the coach. So we can all practice that in a professional way with a time study or with coaching or personal at home to avoid those arguments.
Yeah, I mean, so important. I want to pivot a little bit because you and I are not 29 anymore. We're growing older.
Right.
And when I think about health and I think about things that we should do to stay healthy, and I don't know if there productive health, but I think of productivity as health has to be a component of it, right? If I'm not healthy enough to do the thing that I'm trying to be productive at, then I'm not very good at it. How do we make sure that we're staying healthy at the same time, or we're taking care of ourselves? And health can either be mental health or physical health or whatever it is, in order to allow productivity to take place. Is that part of something that you've thought about or do, or
Well, here's something I share with very few people. My goal is to live to 111.
okay?
And you say, why 111? Well, now you can figure out my age. So, as a kid, one of the big seminal experiences that I had that kind of shaped me a little bit in terms of thinking about creativity and the world, I went to Expo 67 in Montreal as an 11-year-old. And I thought, well, I want to go to the next one. So I figure there'll be another one when I'm 111 and they'll give me a free pass. Okay, well, how do you get to live to 111? And some people, I want to die at 80. I don't want to be like that. Well, you've now figured out my age if you've done the math. Um, you got to live a healthy life. And so I'm out exercising, playing squash, and riding my bike a couple of 3 or 4 times a week. Hopefully, eating fairly healthy, having good relationships with people. Um, so all those things, plus a little bit of luck with genetics, helps. But I would want everybody to have lead healthy lives, and so that they too can live long, productive lives. Whether you get to 111 or not, I don't know if I'll make it, but that's sort of my goal.
That's the goal. I
I
love
want to
it.
go for a nice walk on the day before I die. So that's really what I want to do.
Gotcha. Many would say you're at, now that you've told us your age, many would say that you're at retirement age, and it seems like you're continuing to move forward. You're continuing to go. You're continuing to help people. Before the show, we talked about even a new business where you're helping people in meetings and that kind of stuff. What in your mind is that super important? Because when I think of retirement, I just turned 60 last month, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't ever see myself retiring. I don't see myself sitting down and getting in the RV and driving around the country or doing whatever retired people do, because I just want to continue to help people. I want to be productive. Do you think that helps with, as you get older, to keep your mind going and to keep going, or do you think we all should just retire and
Sure, you
push?
you talk to people who are, quote, "retired," and some of them will say, "I've never been busier in my life."
Mhm.
So they're visiting family, they're going on trips, they're volunteering, maybe they're running a business part-time, they're learning the piano or reading books and so on, so to keep them busy with all that stuff. In my case, and maybe yours, we wanna keep running a business that earns money.
Mhm.
To me, that's really a powerful thing. I do lots of volunteering as well, and so it's kind of like my professional work, but I'm just not getting paid for it. So, and I like the idea of having new projects. You mentioned the meetings. I'm starting this journey of becoming the meeting master and helping people run better meetings, which is consistent with everything else I've done. So, indeed, I think that's important. Some people want to retire from their 9 to 5 job and maybe they're required to or whatever. I would say find some new projects to do and maybe start with that volunteering. And I like the idea of constantly having new projects that are keeping me busy.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm glad. Thank you for saying that, because so many people just say that like our goal in life is to get to this retirement, and I think this that construct is just something that came from the 30s when people were working in factories and couldn't work there anymore. I don't think people in the
Right.
1700s and the 1800s or whatever really 19 actually really retired. I don't think it was something that they did, and so I kind of want to. I think of myself getting back to, no, be productive your whole life. If you got another 40 years left in your life, then live those 40 years in a way that's going to make a difference. And so,
Your
uh,
theme is finding your purpose, and
yeah,
I hope some of your audience are listening to us and thinking, well, I could do that. And listen,
yeah,
just take those little steps that we
mhm,
talked about
yeah.
to find your purpose, whether it's a retirement, whether you're a 25-year-old, whether you're a teenager, it doesn't matter. But go out on a journey and just do things and find out what seems to be clicking and what seems to turn you on and keep following that passion.
I love that. Is there anything I didn't talk about? I was super selfish in asking you all the questions, and the path we went down was all Brian. But what would you
Well,
want to share?
I'll give you my favorite time management tip,
Okay.
and that is simply to write a to-do list every day. And other people have recommended that. But here's the formula that I use. I say start with a blank slate. You got nothing on your to-do list, nothing at all, no meetings, calls, whatever. And ask yourself, if I had nothing to do, what would I do to affect my results a month from now?
Ooh.
Oh, well, I'd hire that new person. Oh, I'd start that new project, or I'd, make some sales, whatever it might be. Um, those are your priorities. That's that 20% of time, or maybe 30%. Um, so think about, again, I've got a blank slate. What would I do to affect my results a month from now? Write down the things you can finish today on your to-do list. You can't hire a new employee, but you can review some resumes, or you can set up an interview or something. And then after that, fill in everything else you need to do. But be mindful of those top priority activities. Set some time aside for them. Maybe it's finding your purpose. Spend an hour today on finding your purpose. Don't let that other stuff get in the way, because that will affect your results a month from now. That's how to have a really effective to-do list.
Wow. Thank you for that. 'Cause and for those of you who are watching, you had to wait. If you're still watching and you've been with us this whole time, you just got the gem of the show, because I don't do that. I literally get my to-do list and I go through all the things that I didn't get done yesterday, and those get up at the top. I try to prioritize what's the most
Right.
important, And sometimes the priority is what's the most important for a relationship. Sometimes the priority is what's the most important money to make money today. What's the most important. But I don't, and I love that if I do that every day, think about what it could affect a month from now. Oh my gosh,
And
my
start with
whole
those things. Start with a blank
yeah, then
slate. Yep,
my whole to-do list changes. My whole priority changes
for
based
sure.
on what I can possibly get done over time. And like you said, obviously you can't get everything on your to-do list done, but if you work on those 20% things and then make those 20% things like you talked about earlier in the show, the 30% things, or I'm spending 30% on the productivity instead of the admin stuff, then I get to be a different person. I get to have a different life. And maybe that life that I've been dreaming at, the life that I've been wanting by just tweaking a few little things. And so, oh my
And
God.
if you're really stuck,
Mhm.
give me a call.
Oh,
Send me a note.
yeah.
I'll do it pro bono. I'll help
Yeah.
people
Thank you,
to
Mark.
give them a little bit of a push. I met a guy at the subway buying a submarine the other day. He had a really good voice. I said, "You could do some voice acting." Oh,
Mm,
helping him out, giving you some coaching ideas. So give me a call. I'm not pitching anything. My clients are corporate clients, but if someone needs some help, happy to give a shot of inspiration or some deep listening to
deep
help you
listening.
find your purpose.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for sharing your life with us and what makes you tick, what makes you excited and happy. And it's been such a blessing on my end to be able to ask you the questions I did and then get these answers. And I hope for those of you who are watching, you go back, you watch the show again, you listen to the gems that he gave us throughout the show. I got 4 pages of notes that I've been writing down as we go.
Well,
And so you said at the beginning of that you wanted to make sure that you would help our listeners be as productive and to be able to take something away from our conversation that could enhance their life. And I think you delivered on that. And so I appreciate you being on today. And for those of you who are just watching, and this is the first episode you've ever watched, go ahead and hit the subscribe we have or the notifications or whatever it is that YouTube stuff that we do in order to keep this show going, because I promise I will continue to make sure that I'm bringing on folks like Mark who have the ability to make a difference in your life if you will just listen. And so, again, Mark, thank you for being on. As I say at the end of all of my shows, I believe your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And it's going to be a good day in every way. And we will talk to you on the next one. You guys have an amazing, awesome day today.